in this exercise, what I want to do is to analyze the paints that we have. So I've put together some yellows, reds, blues, and some greens. I don't generally use green out of the tube, but I've been experimenting with different combinations, and I have been using these ones a little bit more. And sometimes I can get really lovely greens. But most of them I can get them if I mix what I have. Some of the paints will be transparent, and because when I mix my colors, a few of my paints are opaque, I don't get that translucency or transparency, but we'll look at that in a different module as well. So what I have here is a few yellows, and I'm starting to think, from what I can see on the labels are not always great, but I can see some paint there, and this one's a little bit dirty, but I can start having an idea more or less of what they look like. So let's look at my yellows, for example. I have a Winsor lemon, and this to me is a cool yellow. It doesn't lean to red pretty much. It's like almost like a neon yellow. Then I have a lemon yellow, and it's really very similar. This lemon yellow could be a little bit warmer from what I can see. There's some a bit more red, even though it's definitely not red or orangey, but it's very, very similar. So this is a series 2, and this one is a series 1, I'm pretty sure. Yes, so that means that this tube, series 1, would be cheaper than a series 2. So when I go and buy my colors, I'll have to think, well, there's not much point in getting both, because they're not too different from each other, and it's just whether I like the texture of one more than the other, or the price as well, because you know, series 2 would be, I don't really know the prices, but price wise it would also make a difference, but it could be the texture as well, or this color is semi-transparent and this one is semi-transparent too, but probably a bit more so. So I'd have to bear in mind when I buy my paints, if I do want to buy one of each, or I'm just happy with only one of the two. I probably would buy the Winsor lemon, just because I think it's a bit more crisp. And then I have colors like a spectrum yellow, cadmium yellow, and a golden yellow. And then again, if I compare them, I can really see the difference between all of them. So that's super cool. That color is leaning, it's warmer definitely than this color, but then it's cooler than this yellow, and way cooler than this yellow, which is almost orangey. So if you have this yellow on its own, you probably think, well, it may not look as orangey as it does compared to all of these, especially if you put it next to red, it will look more like a yellow. But together you can really see the difference. So it'll be fun to see what we can create with each. Then we have our reds, and with the reds it's something similar. So I have a spectrum red, I had a cadmium red, then I have a quinacridone red and a quinacridone magenta. And if I look at them on their own, I can say, if I don't have these colors, I can already see that this red to me is warm. It has a bit of yellow tinge in it. It doesn't lean to blue. Then if I grab this color on its own, I can definitely see that this is more like a purple, so it really leans to blue. With these two colors, it's very similar. This I would say is a warm red, and this, the quinacridone red, is a cool red. Then when I put them next to each other, even though the spectrum red is a warm red, it's not as warm as the cadmium yellow, the cadmium red light. And with these two, when I grab my quinacridone red compared to my quinacridone magenta, my quinacridone red is way warmer than the magenta, even though it's still cool. And with my blues, it's exactly the same thing. I can see the turquoise is way warmer, like it's very warm, it's very yellowy. Then my Spectrum Cerulean, which is like a cerulean blue, it's also not leaning so much to red, it leans more towards the yellows. And if I'm not sure, then when I grab my Spectrum Blue, which is like a cobalt blue, and my ultramarine blue, which I know my ultramarine blue to be a warm blue, and it leans very much towards the red. When I put them together, I can see the difference. I can see that, well, this one is pretty obvious, and then the cerulean blue, it's more leaning towards a green than it is towards a red. With these two, the cerulean blue, the cobalt blue is lighter than that one, so I might just find it a little bit difficult to see, oh, which one is warmer than which. But I can see anyway that this color leans way more towards the red than this one. When I mix it, again, we'll see if there is a difference. Now, with the greens is something similar. So this green to me leans a lot towards the yellow compared to this phthalo emerald. I can see on the tube that where it's really thin, it's a yellowy green, especially compared to this one. I mean, this is a Viridian, and look at the Viridian, it is more bluey. So of the two, that is warmer than this yellow, than this green, but then it's cooler than this green. And this Prussian green, again, would be, see how it's sort of yellowy inside? Rather than this one is more blue, it'll be warmer than this green, and so is this one. This one to me has a lot of red in it because it's like a, it's sort of very muddy. It's beautiful, it's an olive green, but it is a bit muddy. It has a red pigment. I can see it on the back. It says it's not very good, but I know that it has a PR 101. P means pigment and R is for red. So this green would be really warm compared to any other green that I have in here. So we're going to mix some of them and find what we can get when we mix these colors together. I want to see what oranges I can get, what greens and what purples. So I'm not going to worry about the greens. I just wanted to show you how I would compare to know whether they're warm or cool. And if you do want to use greens out of the tube, sometimes when I use them, I could mix them with some yellow as well and just turn them a little bit into something a little bit different to what's in the tube, or a little bit more blue, or even a little bit of red, and mute it down. So let's go and get our exercise sheet together and have a play. So I've chosen what colors I'm going to use for the exercise, and I've written down the names on my exercise sheet. I'm going to have my Winsor Lemon for my cool yellow, my Spectrum Yellow, a cadmium yellow and a golden yellow. Then a cadmium red light is going to be my warm red. Then I'm going to have a Spectrum Red, a quinacridone red and quinacridone magenta, as I know they're my cooler reds. And I'm going to use a turquoise, a Spectrum Cerulean, a Spectrum Blue and an ultramarine blue. And what I want to know is what combined with each other, what orange I'm going to get, what purple I'm going to get, and what green I'm going to get. So I know which one of my colors is cool, which one is warm. And so that's why I wrote in those little squares what colors I'm going to be using to get a nice vibrant sort of like a truer purple, a really bright green, and a vibrant orange. If you're unsure, what I would suggest is that you set up your little squares at the top and you leave this section blank, and then you take a piece of paper and you combine your colors until you more or less have an idea of which ones give you a nice bright orange, a purple, and a green, and a nice bright green. So I'm going to start with my Winsor lemon, and I've grabbed a flat brush like we did in the previous exercise, as it makes it easier to fill in these boxes. I mean, you don't need to trace if you don't want to this sheet. I just like to have things sort of you know, sometimes looking very symmetrical, and I find that having something like this helps me to keep a structure, but you're definitely welcome to do what works better for you. So then I'm going to grab my Spectrum yellow, and I can see the difference. See how this color looks way more green than the Spectrum yellow. The Spectrum's already started to look warmer, like a yeah, like a nice more orangey yellow, even though when I put it next to an orangey yellow it won't look orangey, but next to this cool yellow then it does. Then I'm gonna grab cadmium yellow, and you'll see the difference. So cadmium yellow on its own won't look this as orange as it does here, but when compared to other things, then it just becomes more more vibrant. And when I add white, you can see as well how yes, it's more reddish. And look at the Spectrum yellow, how it's sort of become way cooler compared now that I put the cadmium yellow, but then not as cool as the Winsor. Now this golden yellow is super orange. I just thought I'd put it in to see the difference, and yes, look at the difference with this yellow and the others. So if I want to have a like a color, if I want to have a yellow looking color in my painting, I won't use golden yellow as my yellow. I could use it then to mix with other things in sections or to darken one of these yellows, but I probably would use more you know, yellow as we know, like a Spectrum or a cadmium. And this color with white, it's like a lovely creamy color. sort of. And what I want to see now is I'm gonna mix it with my cadmium red. So I might put my red here anyway. And I'm gonna put a few pools of color. And I probably won't need too much color because cadmium red is quite strong anyway. So I'm just going to put tiny little bits and then adjust it if I have to. Okay, and I'm going to grab my Winsor lemon. Probably should have cleaned my brush. And just put it here. Then I'm going to do the same with the Spectrum yellow, and I would assume that these would be like a brighter orange because it's this color, this yellow is leaning more towards a red than it is towards a green. It's probably not very easy to see, but I can see that this orange is a little bit more muted than this one. And my cadmium, put too much. And I would say this would give me the nicest orange. Well, nicest sort of, like a vibrant bright orange, because they're both really warm colors. It probably, in fact, the golden yellow could be the one that does it the most, but we'll have to see how that is more yeah, like a true orange. And obviously it depends as well what ratio of yellow and red I'm mixing, but you can more or less see, I mean, mixing orange, unless you mix a yellow that is really super cool, or that has a bit of green in it, then you'll get like a nice orange. So there's not much difference between these two, and then these are not too dissimilar, so I'm going to have another go. I'm going to mix it here on the palette, and so you can see how they are different. Oops, no, I didn't want that yellow. I'm going to put a spectrum to when I put cadmium. I hope you can see in my palette here, but it's way more obvious here than it is there. That is sort of luscious and bright, and even though this is a warm yellow and it is beautiful orange, I can get a truer orange when I use a cadmium. Cadmium paints are really expensive because the pigment is it's very expensive in those paints, but you can see why. I mean, even though Spectrum Yellow is really lovely, I can't get as nice an orange, or in my view, as I can get with the cadmium. So I just wanted to show you that so you can see it there, which is a little bit easier to see than on the exercise. So I had the cadmium red, and I'm just gonna mix it with a little bit of white. And when I do this, you will see also mixing your color with white will help you see whether your color is cool or warm. Especially when you compare it with another color. But I can see already here that my red, when I mix it with white, I'm not getting pink really. I'm getting like a coral sort of pink, sort of more like a yellowy, not quite salmon, but yeah, more like a coral color. So I will know then that my cadmium color is just not gonna, it's not cool, it's warm. And now when I put my Spectrum Red, which is warm as well compared to the other reds that I have that are cool, I will see that it's still cool compared to my cadmium red. So whether a color is cool or warm, the importance is, it's just not, it doesn't, I don't know if labeling matters so much as to know that because the Spectrum Red is warm but it's a little bit cooler than my warm red, then I'm gonna get, if I mix it with white, a more like a truer pink. This is like a sort of like a baby pink, so it's still warm. And I'll show you when I mix the quinacridone. But it's warm, but it's not warm compared to this cadmium red. So with my quinacridone, this is more like it's not a pink, but I can see it definitely leans way more towards a purple than it does towards a yellow. So when I mix it with white, how beautiful. Okay, I get it a lovely, lovely cool pink. So if I mix this color with a blue that is warm, that means that that blue leans towards a red, then I will get a closer purple than if I mix any of these two. And this is my quinacridone magenta. mix with white. It's like a lovely warm lilac. Really pretty. If that's what you like, of course. Okay, so I'm going to mix them now with ultramarine blue, and this might bring us back a little bit to the exercise that we did at the beginning with the color wheel. Where we can see what purples we get. So that is my warm red, and you look at that, I mean, it's like a really dark burgundy. Actually, I should use more color. Yeah. It's really dark. It's like a almost like a very dark grey, greyish, purpley brown. It's a bit of mud, and that's because my red leans a bit towards the yellow. Then I'm adding blue. So if my red leans towards the yellow, then I'm mixing some kind of version of yellow, red and blue. And those three colors give us a black. And that's why my mix is not going to give me a nice bright purple. So this red should work a little bit better because it is cooler, but we'll see, it may not be. But I can see here already that I can get something closer to purple with my Spectrum red. And that's nice, like a nice deep purple. But the fact that that Spectrum red again leans a little bit towards yellow, it's making my purple, when I mix it with the blue, not bright. It's just dulling it a little bit and it's desaturating it. And you'll see now what happens when we mix magenta. And that's like a brighter purple. You can see it's more like a purple. It's just vibrant. It doesn't have that dullness that this purple has. And my quinacridone magenta, it's very I can't see any traces of yellow so much in that, whereas this purple still is not it's not going to be as bright as this one. I'll show you. Look at this. So they're probably subtle sometimes, the changes, but when you put them next to each other, you can see the difference. I mean, that is still brighter than my quinacridone red. And now we're gonna experiment with the greens. So I have my turquoise. Have my Spectrum Cerulean. A little bit too much. Okay. I used a little bit too much medium and it's very runny, but it looks okay. So I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white, and when I add the white, if I didn't see before how much cooler this color is to the turquoise, well, I can see now how yellow that one is. And I'm going to my Spectrum Blue, which is like a cobalt blue, and cobalt and ultramarine are sort of the warm blues. There are not very many warm blues. Some brands do like a phthalo blue red shade, and that would be warmer than a normal phthalo blue, or than a phthalo blue green shade. So you could use that as your warm blue. I don't have one to be able to compare it, but I think it's Gambling that does it, and I'm sure that other brands would. And also some watercolors and acrylics and oils and gouache, sometimes the pigments and the names will change between brands. So it's good to know what you have already. So if when you go to buy your paints, you don't spend a lot of money on things that you may already be able to mix yourself with the paints you have. I I've collected all these paints over so many years, and when I actually got them when I started painting, and I was doing night class at Julian Ashton, and I won a prize and I got a voucher at one of the art stores, and I went and bought paints, and I bought things like that green that I showed you before, and it's been sitting in my box for years because I never got to use it. I just didn't know how to mix it, what to use it with. But so now if I go and buy paints, I wouldn't spend money on that green. I would spend money on buying really nice quality paints where the pigment is very great quality pigment, and I can then mix my colors out of them. That's what I prefer to do. It helps maintain that harmony in your painting because you're only using a few colors. So I think that's something that I definitely prefer to do, and I'd rather buy, like I said, fewer paints but better quality, and spend my money on brushes, which for the work I do, brushes are very important. I can't, some brush strokes you're not going to get with just any brush. So yeah, and then also the not great quality brushes will fray very quickly and just not give you like a nice crisp lines which when I do my stylized paintings, I do need a lot. So I just mix the turquoise with the Winsor lemon, and I can see that I get like a really beautiful green. And you know, it's cool, but it does, when I mix it like that, then it looks quite warm here. Then when I mix the other colors, you'll see the difference, but it's sort of like a warm, vibrant green. Now when I add the cerulean, it depends on how much paint you add. So now if I add too much yellow, yeah, we'll get a nice yellowy green. But I can see how it starts as I add the cerulean. I can see how it's not quite as vibrant as this turquoise. Still a lovely vibrant green, but I'm not getting as crisp as this green, which is a little bit cooler. And this is starting to lean. I can see that it's getting a little bit not dirty, but just not as cool. So look at the difference now when I add the yellow with the cobalt, like the spectrum blue. It has lost a lot of that vibrance, and you can get beautiful greens, like, you know, if you're painting leaves or landscape. I mean, it depends on what style you use. If you are more realistic or whether more abstract, and you like those poppy colors, then you know, vibrant colors are really beautiful. And then if you want to be more realistic, then those you know, more earthy greens might suit you a bit more, might suit your style a bit more. So this is not just about mixing vibrant colors, but it's about knowing that if you do want to mix them, what colors you will need. Because if you have only a red that is like that and that blue, even with the ultramarine, you're not going to get a purple. So it's just good to know. You could almost, you know, but if you do have a cool red and a warm blue and you want that purple, you can create that by adding, or a version of it, by adding a little bit of yellow. But you will never be able to create this purple with this red and that blue. So it's just knowing with the colors you have, you can dull them, but to make them bright, you will need certain colors. So I was doing, yes, the ultramarine, and this will be way more earthy. So you see the difference. So in this section that I have on my left on my sheet, I want to add a swatch of my brightest purple, my brightest orange, my brightest green. Or this is a great reference then to see what I can mix with these colors that I have, and you will be able to know what you can mix with your colors. So if I put my, say, my brightest purple, I mean, brightest may not be the right word to use, but it's sort of like the vibrant or you know, truer as we sort of know it. And then, and I'm gonna add a little swatch of each, and I want to add a little bit of each as well with a bit of white, just to see. So clean up my brush really well, and I'm gonna grab my ultramarine blue. I had it mixed here anyway, and my quinacridone magenta. I want to mix like a nice pool. Until I get to sort of like a purple that I like. And I'm gonna add a little swatch here. Okay, I want to add a little bit of white, and I want to show you so what happens when you add white. So we learned in the previous module about desaturating color, and we know that adding white will desaturate your color. It will make it more chalky and pastel-y. And I said you can add yellow to, you know, bring back some of the vibrance. In some cases, if we add yellow to the purple, it's going to create a gray because we are adding, it's complementary. And because we know that in purple we have red, blue, and when we add yellow, we're going to desaturate it. So if I want, in the case of purple, if I want to make this mix a little bit more vibrant, I have two options depending on where you want your color to lean to. So let's say that I have this purple here and this purple here. So I can add, actually this is going to be, I mixed a tiny little bit of a different color there, so I might as well put it on top. I can add a tiny bit of the magenta, and I'm going to bring that saturation back a little bit. See how it's lighter, but I'm just making it more saturated and not as dull as it is that if I just add white. Or I can add a little bit of the blue. So I mix whichever blue and red I mixed for this purple, that's what I'm going to add. Adding my blue is change the color, though too much towards blue. But that is an option, I mean, depending on what you want to achieve. Usually I would add more of the magenta. That's how I like to bring back the saturation of my color, or a little bit of red. That's usually what I would do. Next, from the blues that I've used, I can get my brightest green if I mix my turquoise with the Winsor lemon. Like this will be my most vibrant green that I can get. And I'm going to do the same and just mix this color with a little bit of white. I mean, this is really pretty. and it could be a color that I might use by itself. But if I'm trying to bring down the lightness or brightness, the lightness of the green, then I would top it up with a little bit of yellow. And see how it's kept a bit of that vibrance. Then I'm gonna mix my orange with the cadmium yellow and probably my cadmium red. Even though the golden yellow gave me a lovely orange, it's not a color that I would use as my yellow, so I wouldn't really mix it, put it in as my vibrant orange. Actually, I might add a little bit more red. Okay, and mix with white. And bring back the saturation by adding a little bit of the yellow. So it doesn't have to be much, just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. Go. So now I want to move on to another exercise that I find really fun to do. And for this, you probably just need a blank piece of paper. You won't really need a template. Because we just want to find different gradations of our colors. So first of all, I'm going to clean my palette and then I'm going to explain this exercise. Next bit of the exercise, I just want to have fun using different gradations for my mixes. So we're going to sort of freestyle it, and what I want to do is mix different versions of my colors. So say for example, I have my ultramarine blue and I want to see the different purples that I can create in just using the ultramarine blue and my quinacridone magenta, which was my my coolest red, the one that created that lovely purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of the ultramarine blue and I'm going to add it as a swatch to see it. And I'm going to start mixing little bits of the quinacridone magenta. And what I really like about this is that you can see all the different steps of color that you can get. So sometimes you might just want to change your blue a little bit and not necessarily get a purple, but by just adding a little bit of something else, you'll get beautiful changes in your color. So I just added a tiny bit of the magenta and it somehow darkened my blue a little bit. I probably added too much solvent, so I might go again. But it's just the tiniest little bit of magenta, just to change blue. And I'm going to keep going by just adding again a tiniest little bit, and I'm comparing on my palette, and when I'm comfortable or happy that there is a bit of a change and variation, then I put it on the paper. So for example, I really like this blue, and not necessarily then it means that I would need to, you know, always use these two colors to mix a purple. Like I said, I can just use it to change my blue into something slightly different. And I'm going to keep going until I get to my purest form of the magenta. So that's one set of colors. I'm going to do the same with my quinacridone red, and I may even explore with alizarin and permanent rose, because I have a fair few of those reds, and I just want to see what variations I get. So I'm going to speed this up, and you can do this alongside me with your choice of colors. I'm going to mix some greens, yellows, some greens and oranges, just to see all the variations. Picking 3 or 4 blues, probably not going to go through a whole lot of them because this will take a really long time, but you're definitely welcome to do that. So I'm going to speed up the video, and yeah, I'll see you at the end. And the point of this exercise is not only to see the range of colors that you can get when you mix two of the primaries together, so to see your orange, your purple, your green, but also what I love about this is that sometimes you can turn your prime color, or your primary, or whatever color it is out of the tube, into something slightly different and absolutely beautiful when you just add a tiny little bit of something else. Okay, let's actually look at the quinacridone magenta. I just love the range of reds that I can get when I mix it with the golden ochre, and the same with the Prussian blue and the golden ochre. I mean, this is just so pretty, but not just the middle range. I just love the way the yellow looks when I add a tiny little bit of the Prussian blue, and the Prussian blue when I add a tiny little bit of the golden ochre. Now, the phthalo turquoise as well is just really lovely. This this range here of just with a little bit of the yellow, how the color changes into something. If you're painting the ocean, for example, like a lovely blue, deep turquoisey blue, and with the lemon, the Winsor lemon, it's as well. It's just a beautiful, beautiful range. You get like an emerald green in there, in the mid-range, and then also like a deep emerald as you're getting closer to the turquoise. The ultramarine blue and a warm yellow as well. It's just a beautiful range of earthy greens. The orange doesn't jump too much like the mid-range, but I can see that this is sort of deeper somehow, like a lovely, more structured, I don't know if that's the word, orange than these. The other reason for it is that these two colors are opaque. So I'm getting a lovely, really thick orange, whereas with the others, it gets a little bit washed out in the middle ranges, because these reds are not, this red, actually, let me just see. The red is opaque, but the spectrum yellow is semi-transparent. So we're going to talk about this in the next module, but you can see that when I mix these two colors, which are opaque, I get a very thick coverage. And then when I mix, even if one is opaque and the other one is semi-opaque, I can still see a little bit of streak marks in there. The same here with the quinacridone red. That's because of the nature of the paints. One is opaque, one is transparent. So this is as well a really good exercise for you to see what texture do you like when you actually have it on the all down and in comparison, and whether you prefer the more opaque paints, or how the paint looks, or how you like what the paint looks like on your surface, as well as the colors. With watercolors, it'd be very similar, and acrylics and wash. And watercolors actually have granulating texture. Some of the paints, the ultramarine blue, for example, is granulating. So when you do this exercise, you might see different things or different textures when you combine it with the different colors. So I hope you enjoy this exercise. It's a bit of a long one, and you don't need to do it in one go. You can come back to it. I actually didn't do it in one go. I just came and went. So you can see as well with the brush marks, as I'm coming back in a couple of hours, it already changes. So take your time and really, really enjoy it. I feel that this is a beautiful reference for you to keep, and something that you can come back to a lot of the time and keep exploring. So if you do have more reds, if you have more blues and yellows, maybe you want to have another go on a separate piece of paper and combine, let's say, a cadmium red with a golden ochre, or a spectrum red with a golden ochre, or a cadmium red with a lemon yellow, or a Winsor lemon, and see what differences you get. You don't need to do the whole gradation, but just have a little bit of practice to see what you can get with the different colors. I feel that doing the gradation is really good to start training the eye to see very minute differences. Like in some places when I was doing it, I could see the difference, and now that it's dry, some of the colors look very, very similar, but still I can see how they're moving from the dark to the light. And to get those steps and in really, really tiny increments is really good training for whichever style you do, whether you're more energetic, abstract, or you love the detail. Yes, I hope you enjoy it.